Welcome to episode 49 of the Busted Buttons video game podcast. And I gotta say, I feel like we say this every episode. I am pretty damn excited for this week's episode because we're going to be talking about one of the biggest and one of the most controversial games to come out in recent memory, and that is Cyberpunk 2077. I gotta tell you, just right off the bat, it's a great game, but it is not without its flaws, and it was absolutely not without its controversy. So I'm excited to dive into all that. We're gonna talk, as we always do when we talk about a game, we're gonna talk about some general info.
Ooh, excited about that part, baby.
Oh, it's always the best part. And we're gonna talk story, characters, the world, the gameplay, and then we are gonna hit on we're not ignoring the elephant in the room. We are gonna talk about the bugs and the controversy that came with it. Then we're gonna talk a little bit about the reception and what kind of legacy we think this game will leave. And it's kind of interesting. Normally when we talk legacy, we're talking about older games that came out decades ago. In this case, it's only been out, what, 5 months, something like that? So,
but it's already got a legacy, and it ain't that good so far.
Absolutely. So we're going to just dive right in here. So, Cyberpunk 2077, it just came out in December of 2020. It's kind of a hybrid first-person shooter / RPG. It's made by CD Projekt Red, the same guys, of course, that made the Witcher games that, hey, you've heard us praise Witcher 3 through all four. I'm pretty sure we've said something about it in every of our 49 episodes.
Yep.
So it's made by those same developers. It had a lot of delays, which, for a game this big, absolutely makes sense. And it was it's released for PS4, PC, and Xbox One is what it was aimed for. It is playable on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, but it's not optimized for them yet. That should be coming hopefully in 2021. And to date, it has sold over 13 million copies just by the end of December 2020 alone. So, now that we got that, that general info, the really exciting stuff out of the way, I'm going to throw it to you. Where do you want to start talking about Cyberpunk 2077?
Well, I mean, we can dive into the story because I think the story is not really the most, the biggest shining part of the game, but it is a very good part of the game. But just first of all, some surprising things. 13 million. I did not expect that number. I know it's a huge game, and a lot of people bought it around the launch period, but the issues started coming out so early that I wouldn't think it would have sold that many, but that kind of shows you, a big game with that much anticipation, how much it can actually sell with its issues. But we'll kind of get into all that later on. But just let's dive into the story first. I guess I kind of wanted to talk about the world, but then you put the story first, so we'll start.
We can talk about the world first if you want.
No, story's fine because you have it in the outline that way. And if we go somewhere else with the outline, we'll talk about the world, and then later on when we get to the world, I think I need to talk about it again. So story really, it's a very cool story because you get to start one of three ways. You can start off as a Nomad, a Streetkid, or a Corpo. Nomad's kind of out on the outskirts. Streetkid, exactly what it sounds like. He grew up in the streets. Or Corpo is corporation. So just very in those three places, they get you kind of to the same spot, but you obviously go about them different in the beginning. And I thought that was very cool how, this is one of those things where the game was ambitious in a good way. There are many ways where it was ambitious in a bad way, but this part right here is very cool to start off with. Three kind of different stories. Now, I've kind of touched on this before. I don't want to say I dislike when games give you options of stories, but I do like when a story just stays on one single path because now I don't have to feel like I got to experience it different ways. Like with the ending as with the beginning. First of all, people, this episode will have spoilers for the game throughout. So there's that warning that we always forget about in the intro. But along with the beginning having three different ways, the ending also has three different ways. And so, yes, that is cool in a way, but at the same time, I kind of like it to go that path so I don't feel like I missed something if I didn't go with one of the beginnings or one of the endings. So already, first of all, just choosing one route, I feel like I missed two beginnings and I missed two endings. And so I don't really like that. I know that you could play through them they did the ending very well to where it's saved right before the last mission and you could choose your three different ways. I really like that. I know that you went back and did a second one. Very cool right there. You don't have time either. So
I shouldn't have, man. The second one I did was so fucking depressing. I should not have gone back and done a second one. But we'll get into that when we get to the end of the story.
But I chose Nomad. Which one did you choose?
So I ended up going with Corpo because, I work in the business world. So for me,
so do I.
Yeah, that's true.
I went country. I went to our roots is where I went because the beginning is your roots.
And it should have been. It should have been. But I went Corpo because I like the idea of being, kind of the cool corporate place, corporate person. And, and I liked a lot of the dialogue options that you got throughout. That was, along with that intro being a little different, I really liked that your background gave you some different dialogue options all throughout the game. Like, depending on the conversation, the way you would react to some conversations would, you could select like your Corpo or your Streetkid or your Nomad, and you would react appropriately. So it's not something that really changes the game that much. Like you said, you've got a couple, maybe an hour or two prologue, and you get some dialogue choices, and it does play in a little bit to the endings. But, I don't think it had a huge overall impact on the story, but I went Corpo. Plus, Cyberpunk was a game all about these giant corporations and how they've taken over, government, and how they're ruling, Night City and the country.
Nomad really doesn't make that much sense because it's like you're out in the outskirts and then you go into the city, and that's where most of the game takes place. So really, Streetkid and Corpo are really the ones that make sense, but go ahead.
Yep. No, so I will just say, the story, we're not going to go through every single thing. This is a multiple,
You're not going to understand it. I've played the game. I watched a recap of the story before this podcast, and I still don't understand it.
Right. But basically, the bare bones story is, you're the player character. Your name is V. You can be a guy. You
love
can be
that
a girl.
Name. Absolutely love that name.
I did too. I played as a girl, so you're probably going to hear me refer to it as a female for most of the way. I'm pretty sure you played as a male, so you may call it a male. But so either way, V is our player character. It basically starts where you and your partner.
Hey, Red, I'm sorry, I want to chime in right here because I just discovered something the other day. I tend to usually play as characters with how the game is marketed. Like when this game was marketed, from what I remember, it was usually a male character playing the lead role. And so I think that's why I went a male. Like at first I thought, hey, I'm a male, so I wanted to play male. But I just started Immortals Phoenix Rising, and everything I saw for that game had a female protagonist, and so when I got to the option of a male or female, I chose female. So it may not be one to kind of, they say it's kind of an avatar for you. So me want to be within the game, I usually choose a male because I am a male. But now I'm starting to think that it might actually have something to do where the games are marketed with how they market the male versus female perspective. Are they showing more of a male protagonist or a female protagonist? So I just thought that was very interesting because with Immortals, I went with kind of what I've seen so far for the game. I thought maybe that had an impact on how I chose to go about Cyberpunk, but go ahead.
So I'm curious. We're obviously going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, not too long, because we will actually talk about Cyberpunk, I promise. So for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, did you go with a male or female, just out of curiosity?
I went to both. With sorry. I went with the male for Odyssey. I was thinking Valhalla. With Valhalla, you can actually do both, which is a very cool concept, but no, with I'm getting mixed up. With I'm also playing Immortals, so I'm playing I'm talking about 3 damn Ubisoft games right now, but no. With Odyssey, I did go male because everything that I had seen in the marketing, now I played it 3 years later, but everything I had seen had been a male protagonist.
See, I was just wondering because I've heard the voice acting and the story for the female is the stronger in the two. Everything I've read is that the female's character is stronger. For me, I go back to Mass Effect. I played as a female because I heard Jennifer Hale's voice acting job playing the female was vastly superior. And this is not a knock on whoever the guy was whose name I don't know, but it's not a knock on the voice actor for the male, but I heard Jennifer Hale's job was so good on Mass Effect that I picked playing as a female because that's what was getting rave reviews. So I was that kind of plays.
If I heard something like that, I would choose that character too. So I would be just like you there.
Right. So anyway, circling back to Cyberpunk,
I thought that was a good point that came across recently.
Absolutely. And so for Cyberpunk, basically, you and your partner Jackie are hired to steal something from a corporation called Arasaka. As you can imagine, it goes horribly wrong. You witness a guy named and I'm going to butcher some of these names. And I apologize.
Yorinobu
is the son of the leader of Arasaka. We witness him assassinate his own father, stage it as a poisoning. You get caught that you're there. Your partner gets shot, and this relic that you were hired to steal, the carrying case that it was in, gets damaged. So you have to put this relic basically into your implant. You've got a brain implant. It's a cyberpunk future. You got a brain implant. Just roll with it. So But essentially, it turns out that this relic contains like what they call a construct, which is like the personality of a person who has died, and that is the other main character, I would say, Johnny Silverhand, and you learn that
who's played by Keanu Reeves.
Oh yes, who's played by Keanu Reeves, which one of the better celebrity jobs. I know we've talked about celebrities in games. I absolutely love his job in this, and so you find out that he's slowly like taking over and overriding your brain with his own like spirit or whatever you want. Like I said, he's called a construct. Yeah, I'm going to say his memories, his spirit. I'm going to call it 18 different things, I'm sure.
Conscience is another word you could use.
Conscious, that is a word I was trying to find earlier and couldn't find it. That's a perfect way to put it. So it's slowly overriding your brain, and it's also killing you in the process. So the whole purpose of the game is for you to find a way to separate your persona, your consciousness from Johnny Silverhands, and also get this relic out of your head without killing you. Yep. And that takes you like all the way into the depths of going after Arasaka, the corporation that created this relic, and going, you're chasing down all these leads, and it turns into a very sprawling open world game where you get to tackle kind of the main quests in a pretty good option of how you want to tackle them, like good timing. So, that's the very broad strokes of the story. Like that's what sets it up. You mentioned this, like we get to the end, you have several different options at the ending where you are basically launching a head-on attack on Arasaka Tower. So you can get to the source of this relic. And, you get the options. I love how you brought up you have multiple different endings you can go through. Like, you can totally give in to Johnny Silverhand and let him and one of his old associates go in guns blazing, or you can use the corporate, the Arasaka, like the sister of the guy that murdered the dad, can sneak you in. You can work with some of the nomads that you befriend along your journey to get in there. So it's really cool how, like you said, the intros are different, the endings are different, the road that you get there is generally a little straightforward, with some different options, different choices along the way, but with a couple of different endings that really makes it interesting. But so that's the broad beats on the story. Are there any other real story stuff you want to hit on before we kind of talk about the endings a little bit?
No, I mean, it's a story that actually, that's the broadness of it, or like, basically the basic story. It gets a lot more complicated than that throughout the story. Yeah. But it was I didn't really understand a lot of the parts. A lot of the parts were confusing. It's a very complex and intelligent game. So there's definitely some parts where I was like, I don't really understand exactly what's going on right here. But overall, you pick up on things here and there, even if you don't understand it. And overall, it ends up being a really good story. I think there's definitely some parts I would change, maybe make it a little bit better. But I think it fit the game very well, and how it came, depending on which ending you played, how it came together at the end. I think, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. You had some interesting characters. Like, first of all, Mark Henry, Deshaun Dexter, or Dexter Deshaun, whatever his name was. The guy that looks identical to Mark Henry. Okay, first of all, before him, I absolutely loved, I guess we're getting into kind of the characters now. I absolutely loved Jackie Wells. Like, the very first guy you kind of meet. I don't know if he's the very first one, but one of the first ones. And you kind of play along with him in the beginning, and then he gets killed. I absolutely love that character, having that relationship at the very beginning. And then throughout the game, you get these characters, like, some of them, like Mark Henry, Deshaun. Is it Dexter Deshaun, I think? Or
Dexter Deshaun,
Dexter Deshaun. Like, I really liked him. Talking about V, the character, just loved his name. And actually, I love the character, too, and how...
Me too.
At least from the male side, I liked how he talked. I never heard the female side. Never even seen a video of the female character, but throughout the story, like, it's okay. It's okay. I would say it's maybe a little bit above average, but just the characters that you meet throughout the game, and you kind of talked about Johnny Silverhand, Keanu Reeves. He absolutely nailed it in this game. We've had an episode where we kind of talked about celebrities in gaming, and it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't, but Keanu Reeves was absolutely perfect for this game. Like, his parts, he absolutely nailed his parts. And to me, it added a lot to the game because, like, you knew it was Keanu Reeves, but it just felt like a person that was really in that game. It didn't feel like it was a celebrity. So he did amazing right there. And then, you kind of, my girl Pan Am, like, depending on which character you play with, you can have sex with certain characters. So me playing the male, I got to smash Pan Am. Pan Am's my girl, man. First of all, she is smoking. And then two, she is cool as hell. shout out to the avocados. Shout out right there, avocados, because those are my boys. They were my boys and my girls in the very end. Like, we ride or die. I was ride or die avocados in the end. I'm getting excited just talking about it because I absolutely loved the avocados. I loved that whole story, behind, side story, I guess. Well, it wasn't really a side story. It was a side story within the main story.
It's like a character-specific storyline is like the way I like to look at some of those side stories. But I'm really glad that you brought up like Jackie Wells from the beginning, because when I gave that broad strokes, just here's the general plot outline, they do a really good job setting up your relationship with Jackie, like your partners, and you both have this goal of being like world famous mercenaries, like being superstars in the world. And this is a very, obviously by the name, it's a very futuristic cyberpunk world. There's a lot of like internet jargon, things like that, and just like it's a violent city. Like, the setting is a very violent, futuristic setting. So you and Jackie are just two mercenaries who got together, like not romantically, but your friends, your partners, whatever, and you want to be the best. And I thought, I'm completely with you. I loved Jackie's character very much. Spoiler alert, he dies early on, and that sets up a lot of the events of the game. Yep. But like,
I said that he died, but okay.
I think you did. You're right. But you also the story really was a framework, I feel like, to build relationships with some of these other characters. Like, you get Jackie early on. You get Victor, your initial Ripper Doc, which is their terminology for some.
He's okay.
I liked Victor. He's like this boxing fan. He kind of leveled with you. He's very serious. Like, I liked his character. But the story, to me, I'm with you. It's above average, but I wouldn't put it up to par. And I even said before we started, I'm going to try to avoid comparing this to Witcher 3 too much, but it's all made by CD Projekt Red, same company. Yep. So there's going to be some comparisons. I don't think it's up to Witcher 3's par, but man, the way it ties into characters is absolutely spot on. I love Johnny Silverhand. You're absolutely right. He's like this former punk rock lead singer of a band called Samurai, and he had this whole anti-corporation.
That's a terrible name for that band, though.
Oh, right.
like that's a Japanese culture for an American band. So maybe they made it work somehow, but I don't know about that.
It's a little culturally insensitive, I would say, and especially when you consider the whole thing is you're going after a Japanese corporation.
I didn't even think about that part of it.
But basically, he was very much like anti-corporation. Especially like his girlfriend was a very talented like internet like hacker, net runner they call him in the game, and she was kidnapped by Arasaka so she could put something together for him. And so he like goes on a rampage and eventually gets kidnapped himself. He gets killed and turned into this relic, this construct, this consciousness, like you said, that we put into V. But you nailed it, man. Freaking Keanu Reeves, I thought, just had such a good persona for this. And I loved seeing Johnny Silverhand and V's relationship as the game went on, because he's in your head. And at first, he very much wants to either kill you or take over your body, because he's like, well, hell, I've got the power now. And over time, like, you can react to him either negatively or positively. You can tell him off, or you can agree with them. And their relationship really grows as you go through. I mean, it's hard not to when you got a second brain living in your head, basically. So I thought their relationship was really well. And you're going to hear me say that about a few of these people, in the characters, that, they develop their relationship so well. And Pan man, I am with you. I thought she was one of the most fully fleshed out characters. Yeah. And not just like you said, because she's beautiful. They did a great job with that. Yes. But, like her story, like she was one of the nomads, but she kind of left a little bit to see that city life. But then your whole storyline with her was bringing her back to the Aldecaldo family and like protecting them from the other gangs in the Badlands. And she eventually rises to even be, the co-leader along with I think Saul, was the other one's name. So like her storyline was great. And like you said, she's a romantic option if you're the male version of V. So I thought her storyline was absolutely well done. And like you said, if you go all the way through her storyline, she can be right there for you along with all the other Aldecaldos when you're doing that final mission. So
that's what pisses me off about Judy is like, man, Judy was smoking hot too. And like I said, like depending on what gender you were, like, male or female to play the game, you had certain sexual options with certain people. And I guess, okay, here's, I want to say I like it, but then I wanted to tag like, smash. I wanted to smash Judy, and then I couldn't do it. I was like, man, she's freaking good. Like when we went out to the lake, like she's freaking gorgeous. She looks good. I wanted to smash her, but I couldn't do it because I was a male character, not a
she
female.
Was gay.
So,
sorry, man.
So like I like it when it works, I guess, to my what I want, but when it doesn't work with what I want, like I'm like, oh, I really thought that girl was hot, but I'm all for switching it up in a game. And that's really the first time. Like usually it's just an option. Like it doesn't matter if you're male or female in the game. From what I've played, it gives you the option of doing it. And if you want to or not. And so this game kind of switched up differently. And I'm so on it, I guess. I thought it was cool that I don't know exactly how I feel about it. How do you feel about it?
Well, just romantic options and sex and relationships in
video games.
Because it's a very,
I didn't really want to go on because it's also a touchy subject, so I wasn't trying to say anything wrong, but, it's kind of like you kind of got to dance around it because it's a game that, it was different.
It really is, and BioWare is one of the companies, back, they did Mass Effect, they did Dragon Age, were really kind of pushed the limits a little bit for, sexual relationships in games. And that's continued. The Witcher 3 got some shit because, you've got your relationship with Yennefer, you've got your relationship with Triss, and you can just fuck every random prostitute that you want to across all of the continent. But, with Cyberpunk, you do get the option. It's such a tough topic for a video game developer to handle because you want to show love or lust or whatever, depending on the situation. But how do you do that tastefully and without offending people is a very tough line to cross. And that's why I'm with you. I liked that, Pan Am was an option if you were a male character.
Yep.
Judy was an option if you were a female character. I believe River Ward, who's another fun character we'll talk about here in just a second, was like a straight option for if you're a female version of V. So I'm glad that, it's not just, whoever you like, you can smash, as you said. It's just like they do have a little more nuance to it. Like you can't get with Judy if you're a male character. You can't get with Pan Am if you're a female. So I think from that standpoint, it's maybe a little more realistic. Not everyone in the world is bi.
The important thing here, I think, is you got to fit into the story the right way. Like, for example, like a Carrie Eurodyne, like your ex-band member or your former band member, like as a male character, you had the option to have, make love to him, have a gay relationship with that character.
Right.
And, that doesn't bother me, but I didn't like it in that sense because it felt out of line with the story. Like as you're going through the story and you're dealing with Carrie, it just doesn't feel like that connection is there. So in that, I guess what I'm trying to say is when they force it, I don't really like it that much. And I'm not sure if Carrie was Carrie an option for the female? Do you know?
I'm honestly not sure because I was with Judy. Judy was my ride or die.
Okay, so I don't know if Carrie was an option for the female, but for me, I don't care. Gay relationships, they don't bother me whatsoever. Be happy, but when it comes to gaming, it still has to play into the story. You can't just throw it in there to throw it in there. And that Carrie part kind of bothered me because I was like, I really haven't been feeling this connection in that way up until this point. Right. And then it kind of obviously you don't have to choose that option, but it just to me felt forced, and I don't like when things are forced like that because I feel like the developers are doing it just to please people. I think you gotta make it genuine when you do stuff like that. But anyways,
and I'm glad actually if I can hop right in there, I'm really glad that you brought up with both Rogue and Carrie Eurodyne, they were both instances where they were people from Johnny Silverhand's past. Rogue was a former associate, and Carrie obviously was his bandmate, like you said. And I really liked how those characters, if you let Johnny take control of your body at certain points in the game, you got to see him interacting with these people from his past. And yes, it was a little weird because, as a female, V, in my case, he goes on basically a date with Rogue, who's a female character. And you can tell they kind of start getting romantic and then they stop. They're at a drive-in, which is a great scene. They break into an old drive-in, they watch a movie and they talk about the past and everything. It's a really good scene, but it's also, like you said, it's a little forced when you're a female in that role.
Because on the male side, that scene fit perfectly in the story, I think.
Right. So for me, I did love how they did with those two characters, with Rogue and Carrie, they showed they saw through V and saw Johnny underneath, especially when you let Johnny take control of your body. And from that standpoint, I thought they were really well done. Plus, I thought Carrie's character was an absolute blast.
Loved
like
him.
he's just
Loved
this
him.
raging alcoholic who branched out on his own, became a smash success, solo after Johnny died. And his storyline was just funny. He's like this fucking J-pop band or something is trying to use him for promotional shit, and he's battling with them, and they make peace and they all come together. He goes after their producer or some shit, and burns his boat to the ground.
Dude, that boat mission where you just ride that boat and he's sitting there playing guitar, that was one of my favorite missions in the entire game because it's so peaceful. You're just like, it's a game of chaos, really. Like, you're going around, you're shooting people, you have all this technology.
Right,
it is a game of chaos, and you're sitting here, you sit on a boat, and you got Carrie over there playing the guitar. The sun is going down. Like, I absolutely love that mission right there. But there's one more big character I want to talk about before we go to the world, and that's Claire Russell. And just for me, like, I love racing games, and Claire Russell's storyline had a lot to do with like a street racing. Her husband actually died from it, and she was out for revenge for her dead husband, like, against the guy who killed her husband, who ends up being one of the better racers in the game, and obviously that's the one you have to beat in the last race. But
of course,
not a lot to her character, but the fact that she went along with a street racing aspect, like, love racing, and I love when we get in games like this, but don't try to overdo it. And they did not try to overdo it in this game. Like, hey, we're going to have a couple races here and there. We're going to give you a car, or you can bring your own. They made it very simple. I think that, like, they just nailed it. And then her storyline, like, they touched on it. It was important, but it's not too important. I think they just played that whole storyline really well right there. But let's kind of go to the world. I'm going to throw it to you here soon, but actually, I'm going to throw it to you right now. What did you like? I just want to get your opinion of Night City.
Before jumping into the world, I do got to give one more shout out to a character I loved. River Ward was a detective that, his story was kind of tragic. His nephew was kidnapped, and you had to help him rescue him.
Fucking psycho, dude.
Fucking psycho. And you find out, the psycho was abused when he was a kid. It was a vicious cycle. I thought it was a very touching, like, kind of horrible, but touching story. Like, for anyone who out there who has kids, it's not a very fun storyline, but I liked River's character. He was another romantic option if you're a female V, but like, I really loved his character, and his storyline was very emotionally powerful. Like you said, it just shows the vicious cycle that some people can get fucking stuck in. Like, the person was abused, and then he went on to be a kidnapper and abuser himself. It was horrible. I loved River's character, though. So anyway, I had to get that out before we jump into the world. Night City. Man, how fucking gorgeous was Night City. I absolutely loved the whole neon, futuristic skyscraper look of Night City, and just ripping through the city streets, and you've just got these advertisements everywhere, all these stores and buildings, and don't get me wrong, you couldn't go into 98% of it because it's an open world game.
You could go into a lot of them though compared to other games.
Right, but it's like you can only do so much, of course. But man, I thought it was one of the most like visually beautiful cities I've ever seen in a game, especially at nighttime, man, when you get all those neon lights going. You had like the billboards that shot up into the sky that you could see from a long way away. And on top of that,
that was very cool. Why does nobody do that right now? I mean, the technology might not be there, but that's something we need to get on today.
I'm absolutely with you. And then just like, once you get outside the city, like we've mentioned the Badlands area where the Nomads are, that area was huge, and it doesn't look like it on the map until you realize you're driving through it and you're like, I think they scaled this on the map a little differently in Night City, because it's just so wide open desert, and it's a beautiful area, and it's a great contrast to the city. But all in all, man, I absolutely adored the look and the feel of Night City, like that futurist, like near future, not totally sci-fi, but near future cyberpunk look. I thought was just absolutely beautiful with the neon lights. What did you think of Night City?
Well, being a fan of synthwave, like that type of like musical sound, like it reminded me very much like the game was kind of like synthwave kind of like aspect, had a synthwave aspect to it, because like you said, kind of all the neon lights and then all the colors. Like you had a lot of that blue. I don't know all the colors and everything, but had a lot of those blue textures in there. And to me, like synthwave, like it can be futuristic, blah blah blah. Even though it kind of takes place, in the 80s too. Like you can look at it different ways. It's very versatile, but it kind of like that's what I thought about when I was playing this game. And like, I love that stuff. I love, like, neon lights. Like, I love that cool looking stuff for me. Like, as you get older, people are like, oh, you shouldn't like that stuff anymore. Damn it, I still like it. So playing this game,
we've talked about this with building your computer. You like your fucking shit that lights up.
Yes, like, I don't give a shit. I'm like, almost in my 30s, okay? Okay, that's a lie. I still like neon lights. I still think they're cool. So going to Night City, it was awesome. And you kind of touched on the outskirts. Like, when you first started the game, you really didn't think the outskirts were going to be a big part of the game. And as you play, you start to realize that, man, these outskirts, first of all, they are humongous. They're actually probably bigger than the city, and there's quite a bit to do. Like the Sunset Motel, man. This old run-down piece of junk motel.
Yes.
You go there numerous times. There's a pretty decent bar. I've never been to a motel that had a bar like that. Now, it was not a top-of-the-line bar, but it was, a bar you could go into and get a drink. No motels have that anymore, so just seeing a cool-looking motel that, kind of looked futuristic, but actually, I think it looked more retro than it did futuristic.
Me too.
Run down a lot of the story taking place there. It was good to kind of get you outside the city because while the city was beautiful, like, you need to step out.
Yep.
You need to see that there was a world outside the city. So, me overall, I'm a huge fan of Night City for many of the reasons that you said. Like, just the buildings were beautiful. I think the water landscape, water scenery, I think they could have had more than that. Like, there definitely was some of it in the game. That's kind of based on LA. So I know LA does, like, they have the ocean, but I don't think they have a lot of rivers run through the city. So, I kind of understand why there wasn't a lot of water scenery, but I wish there was more because even when it was there, it was still kind of difficult to see. But just driving through the city, I mean, it feels futuristic. It looks futuristic.
Really
the cars look futuristic, and that's kind of where the game, like, we're going to say things in the legacy part and kind of the bugs where we kind of do bash it.
Oh, yeah.
But it did look futuristic, and I think it did a great job of looking futuristic, and it adds to that whole, like, it just felt different than any other game I played. So I was a big fan of the world.
I'm really glad you mentioned the bar at the Sunset Motel because this game, like, there are a lot of bars in Night City and in the outskirts. And something I had a lot of fun doing is on my Twitter account, I was, at Red TGPZ Gaming.
I was going to tell you to plug if you didn't do it. So,
but no, what I was doing a virtual Night City bar crawl, and every bar I would go through, take a couple of screenshots in the photo mode. Another game with an outstanding photo mode. Speaking of such things,
agreed.
And just posting the pictures of the bars because if you guys have listened to us, we like to drink, we like to go to bars here and there. So just going to see all the different
we like
bars.
to go to bars. Some of us can't go because of kids and everything. I would love to go to the bar, but can't easily make it there.
But no, so just going to all the bars because they're marked on the map. I mean, they're not hard to find. So it was just little things like that you.
The bars were very cool, man. They were.
They really were. But man, and just on top of that, just the lore and the world building that went into this. You get all the different gangs and their rivalries because like every neighborhood or district, whatever you wanted to call it, had its own gang, and you get some of that history and that interaction when you're doing some of the smaller like mini quests or whatever you want to call them, and just all the information where you learn about the rise of Night City, how the old world kind of crumbled and the corporations rose up. Like, I know you're not a big fan of reading through all that. That's not your favorite part of video games. But for me, I really enjoyed digging into all those, what they call them, shards, I think they called them, that had the lore.
This game gave you fucking a million novels to read, so, geez, you talking about not liking to read, but this game was ridiculous.
It really was, but I liked how it really fleshed out the story of the world a little bit. And like I said, I thought the gangs were a nice touch, like, because they all had their own unique look.
Yes,
they all had their territory. Like, so for me, it wasn't just the beauty of Night City and everything there was to do in it, but getting into some of that, like that lore of it, I thought was a lot of fun, and like the natural rivalries between the gangs and stuff. Just to me, that really jumped out, and it tied well like into some of the bigger storylines as well. But just even in some of the small little mini quests, that you picked up all over the map, they did a good job of at least touching on like the rivalries between the gangs. So all in all, I thought it was an absolutely amazing game world. it honestly felt a little smaller than I was expecting. But I think that's because you drive so damn fast. Like if you get in one of those cars, you go 200 kilometers per hour. In some of those
the
cars.
city's very compact too. Like I mean, like
it is.
Cities usually like they are big, but they're very small, like in land size, because everything's in one area. So it's not really any different than any other city. Like I mean, you can get around it pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto 5, which is just ridiculous on its size.
But so I love the world. It sounds like you love the world. Just the aesthetic and the look of it was so well done.
Yeah,
but, anything else on the world before we jump into the big part of every video game?
No, the world was. I mean, the world was awesome. I mean, that's all there is to it. Night City was fun as hell. There's a ton going on. It's futuristic. It's fun.
So moving on, and that's about the worst transition. I was in the middle of a drink. I thought you were going to keep talking.
Yeah, my bad.
But so gameplay.
I wanted you to set me up for gameplay so I could go, because that's originally where we were going. Come on,
here we
Red.
Go. Here we go. Hick, talk about gameplay. Go.
Oh shit! What kind of setup is that, man? Gameplay. Man, I'm so on, to be honest with you. The next part, kind of like, with the bugs, glitches, and legacy, we'll kind of all put that together.
Right,
but one issue that I have with this game is it's just too damn ambitious. By the way, that last part, we weren't really bouncing off each other too well. Like, I thought you were going to talk. You thought I was going to talk. Oh, well, I think what happened was we were just both drinking our beers.
Hey,
and we
let's
didn't
be honest.
We
both like our drinks. It's going to happen every now and then.
But this game was just too ambitious for me. And a lot of that comes down to the gameplay, because the character, just touching on one thing, the character has 5 basic attributes. You have body reflexes, technical ability, intelligence, and cool. And then inside of those 5 is a bunch of these other skills that you can enhance.
Yep.
But so first of all, that was too much. But here's my next issue with it, is that you cannot, I hate games where you cannot upgrade everything, because you feel like you're trying to complete the game, and I don't 100% any game, but I like to feel like I'm kind of getting there. Like if I get all the skills in the game, I feel like for the most part, I tackled almost as much as I could in the game.
Yeah, in this game, there was leveled up to your max. Yeah.
In this game, there's so many different things that you cannot get that I really just do not like that model. When I say a lot, I mean there was a lot.
There's
I had trees that I didn't even touch in the game. And a lot of people like you will say, oh, well, that gives it replayability. I ain't fucking ever replaying the game. So for me,
I'm going to replay it once they optimize it for Series X.
Yeah, but you're not going to go through and replay it. Yeah, the next time you can play it differently, but you might play it twice, but you're not going to play it 5, 6, 7 times, which is what you would have to do to fill out all these different skill trees. So right there, the game was just too ambitious. There was too many skills. There's too many of these attributes right there. So I was not a big fan of that. First person shooter, first of all, and kind of slash RPG. Was not a big fan of the first person genre before this game, but after playing it, I kind of did grow on me a little bit. Now, I do still like the third person and over the shoulder. That's my preferred method. But first person shooter, I don't mind as much now, after 140 hours playing a first person shooter. So I was kind of glad that it made me do that, because it kind of, before that, if I would start a game and it was in first person, I'd be likely to quit it. Unless I spent a lot of money on it. But being such a big fan of The Witcher 3, I really wanted to play this game.
Oh, absolutely.
And when I saw that it was in first person, I was not a huge fan, but I was like, I really want to play this game, so I'm going to try to push through it. I did, and so now I feel like I can play more first-party games, and stuff like that. But anyways, kind of gameplay. Give me some of your thoughts about some of the different gameplay mechanics.
First, I completely agree that they throw a lot at you very early on in the game, and there is so much. You're absolutely right when you say you cannot totally max out your character in every attribute or every ability. It's just, which from the one hand, it's cool. It makes you kind of choose a path.
I don't care if you can't get every one, but the amount that you could not get was too much.
It's staggering. And there is not a great tutorial for this game.
Oh, hell no, there's not. There's no fucking good tutorial for a game this ambitious, man.
It took me doing a little bit of research online, what the hell is quick hack? What the heck is breach protocol? Learning some of those things was, it took a little bit of research.
Red, I gotta stop you right here, and I gotta give a tip. People, if you buy a fucking car, You can call that car at any time, okay? If you get stranded out at the avocado camp in the desert, you do not need to run all the way back from the desert to the city because you cannot find a car. If you buy a car, the reason for buying a car is that you can call it by hitting a directional button in the game at any point that you want to. That is my advice to you. Fucking bullshit. Go ahead.
Oh my God, I can only imagine how much time of your 140
hours. Oh, it pissed me off so bad because I knew it like early in the game. I just completely forgot about it because I was hitting that up button so much to get me health. I forgot about the other buttons going on. I was like, what the hell's the point of buying a car? So I look it up online. And I go, you gotta be fucking shitting me. I had this car the whole game. I forgot what car it was. It looked like a Lamborghini, but I absolutely loved that car. And I could never find it throughout the game. And then like my last 5 hours, I figured out again that you could call your car. So people, if you're not playing the game or if you are playing the game, you can fucking call your car just by hitting the button.
I'm sorry, I gotta catch my breath after that. I remember when you told me that, I'm like, you've probably hiked it from the Badlands to the fucking city center. Just
dude, I did. I literally ran from the desert to the city one time because I couldn't find a fucking car.
Oh, I'm crying over here, but no.
But I found a lot of cars, but they were all broken down. You couldn't get into them, which is more infuriating.
Oh my God.
How bad a game design is this that they make you walk all the way from the desert to the city and then you just realize that you're a fucking dumbass.
Guess what? User error is a very real thing. But no, I will say, like, this game it is extremely ambitious. You're completely correct. Like, the amount of ways you can tackle any encounter in this game, like, a lot of it, of course, is conversations. It is a very much an RPG. A lot of it's conversations, but then you can do stealth. You can do hacking, you can do guns blazing. And even if you do guns blazing, you can do assault rifles or sniper rifles or pistols or shotguns, and then even your melee weapons, you've got blades, hammers, clubs. I mean, just the sheer variety and choice that they give you. I am a fan that they give you that many options on how to approach how you play this game. But it is frustrating sometimes because I played, like, early on, I was very much like, okay, guns. That's me. I'm balls to the wall. I like to go in charging. But then the more I learned about the hacking and the quick hacks and how effective they can be, I kind of went that route. But part of me is like, I could go back and play this stealth again. Or I could go back and play it like, rocket launchers, shotguns, assault rifles, absolute balls to the wall. So I was a big fan that they gave you the choice. I'm kind of with you, like you said, though. I'm pissed that I couldn't max everything out or at least get close.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, like, I really like the sheer variety of ways you can go. And I've got to touch on the hacking. Like, because of course it's Cyberpunk. It's so much internet, like net-based, hacking.
Technology.
Yeah. Like the characters like net runners and things like that. I loved the way they did hacking. Like you highlight a character, you held down a button and it gave you an option of, if you had something called like a cyber deck, which lets you equip hacks, which in any other RPG, they're like spells. Let's be honest, they're like spells.
They are.
And it lets you, either burn people, shock people, you could unleash a contagion or a poison, or you could shut down like cameras, everything like that. And it was so well done, just highlighting a target and holding down a button gave you your options of what kind of hacks you could do to that, whether it's a person or a security camera, a turret, anything like that. So I feel like, we've kind of brushed over like the technology aspect of this game to a certain extent.
Right, I kind of talked about lately how I'm like a stealth person. Like I've gotten better with stealth, but I've not done quick hacking or hacking enough in games to kind of get used to that. Right. So I mean, I was a shotgun guy to the face the whole game. Like just go walk up, shotgun face, bam, you dead. And then I kind of talked to you about this quick hacking thing. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I looked into it. I kind of got a couple things here and there. I think I did get the overheat and the contagion, which I believe were two of the better ones. And I tried them a couple times. And I don't know if they were exactly those, but the way I had them powered up, they weren't killing them all the way. So, I would use them and then I'd be like, shotgun to the face. Time. And I pretty much went shotgun to the face the entire game, and it was glorious, man.
I don't blame you for that at all. But like once I really got a grasp of the breach protocol, which weakened enemies, and then the quick hacks, which, like you said, contagion, overheat, shock, like I started using that combo and I jacked all my like ability points. Anytime I leveled up, I was dumping them into that intelligence to make my quick hacks that much more effective. So I got to the point where later in the game, like I would approach like a group of bad guys on one of the little police quests or whatever and just drop contagion on the closest one. And I had all the perks that let it spread to the most number of people, and it would wipe out the entire group of bad guys, and I wouldn't even have to draw my gun. I mean, and so like,
see, that's no fun. That's not as fun as shotgun to the face, man.
Hey, I'm with you. The shotgun to the face is normally my go-to as well.
Yeah.
You know me, but it was a different approach, and I think it was implemented so well. It just wasn't explained very well up front. Because I'm saying, like,
wasn't.
What the fuck is breach protocol? It literally just basically softens up the enemies and makes them more susceptible to your other quick hacks, and that's not explained very well. But so I love
it's
that
because
aspect
the game's too ambitious, and kind of going along with that. Like I had this problem with Skyrim. There's just too much to pick up in the game, which really, like, you cannot expand your inventory quick enough to pick up all the crap that you need to pick up, and really that's where
that's a good transition into the loot in this game.
Yeah, kind of like, actually we'll kind of go ahead and talk about, like, let's kind of group up the bugs, the controversy, and the whole reception of Legacy, because those are all kind of going to be one, like, area, and really kind of go along with that is like, I've said a couple times in this podcast already, but the game's just too ambitious. And kind of what I was going on was just there's too many damn things to pick up. And I can't tell you how many times I had to drop things because I was carrying too much in my inventory. It would slow you down to an unbearable. It was not uncontrollable. It was unbearable speed. You went too slow, and just that got.
That's because you couldn't find your fucking car. If you could find your car, you'd be fine.
That had nothing to do with my fucking inventory, all right? I had too many guns on me at the time, damn it. That car thing really pisses me off to this day, man. But, and like, with Skyrim, like I played Skyrim, and like it was a little bit overwhelming at first.
Yep.
And then that was one of my first open world games besides Zelda games.
Oh, yeah.
And so like it was just too much. And like kind of coming to this game, like I've played more open world games, so I've kind of learned how to go about the overwhelming aspect. Like, kind of learn things as you go along. But this game, just being too ambitious, it had too much for me. And like just being able to pick up all these things and have to search through them, and like how does it compare to what you have? Like, it was too overwhelming, it was too complex, and really that was one of the areas where the game really came down for me. Kind of, what's your opinion on that whole, just how much crap there was in the game?
Dude, and that's the biggest, like, inventory control was a pain in the ass in this game, because you're right. Almost it goes, like, Bethesda games are exactly the same way. You're right. When you talk about Skyrim or the Fallout game, any of those big open world games, you can pick up everything, and so much of it is junk. And my biggest blessing,
consumables in this game were ridiculous.
Oh my god! So my biggest blessing in this game was I got that perk that immediately when you picked up junk, it basically quote unquote sold it and just gave you a couple of dollars or whatever they called it.
I needed that because I had a ton of consumables by the end of the game that I never used.
And then the other thing is just the number of weapons, and how similar they all are. Like. And once you get into it, you realize there's really only like, maybe 10 or 12 unique, weapons, because you start recognizing the names of the weapons, of course, but they all have different perks, different damage levels, different mods. I mean, I am not a big fan of like the looter shooter genre. You look at your games like Borderlands is a perfect example where it's all about finding that equipment in Destiny 2 are perfect examples. Like where, you're constantly searching for that gun that has a little better stats. That's not what I want from my RPG. And
mods were ridiculous because you would get six of the same ones, but they all have different stats. You're like, this is ridiculous.
They did. So I ended up selling or deconstructing like 98%.
I did disassemble a lot of my crap, but it was just too much in the game. And then,
I'm completely with you. And just so like that inventory, and that is a problem I feel like most RPGs struggle with, especially when they're first released, is like, I don't think they understand.
But Cyberpunk went farther than the rest of them.
It did. I completely agree with you. And like, some games, they patch that out over time. They make it a little better, but damn, there's just so much junk in this game. And you keep your legendary weapons. You keep your, iconic is their word for, unique, where it's literally the only copy of the gun in the game. You keep that shit, but man, there's a lot of garbage, but whew. Speaking of ambition, though, I think that's a great place to transition into, like I said, we can't ignore the rocky...
We're already on that part, kind of, with what we're talking about.
We kind of are, but, transitioning from something where I think it's a poor design choice, like you said, the inventory, to shit that was just broken.
Yeah.
Like, it just, the bugs upon release, and we were fortunate. We both played on the Xbox Series X. So it was at least playable.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way to put it.
But it obviously still extremely buggy, and then not even getting we're going to get into the PS4 and Xbox One versions. But what was your experience? Did you struggle with the bugs as much as the media, of course, reported and people reported?
Yeah.
Did you experience that?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty disappointed in the game. I didn't think I was going to give it a score today, but if I did give it a score, I would probably give it, I think, maybe around a 7.2. Not my final answer, but somewhere around a 7.2. And a lot of that is because of just the issues that the game had. Overall, I did very much enjoy playing this game. I thought it was a very fun game to play, but there's so much that's wrong with it. And the whole bug thing, the game's obviously very glitchy and stuff, but then that kind of makes it clunky. And that you might think those things are the same thing, but they're not. There's glitches that don't make the game clunky. This game, the NPC, first of all, my problems with the NPCs were huge because just the way they moved wasn't natural. And then I just got done playing Spider-Man Miles Morales, and that game is so polished. Okay, it doesn't have as much content as, Cyberpunk, which is probably really Cyberpunk's issue, is they try to load up too much content, but that Spider-Man Miles Morales, it just plays flawlessly. And this game right here, just I would have a person, an NPC 3 feet beside my car, and I would go and it would hit me. I would hit that person. I wasn't even close to that person.
And then the cops are on you and you're fucked.
Yeah, but just the mechanics and how their bodies looked and how things moved and stuff. So it just wasn't the glitches for me. It was the clunkiness. It was how everything moved together. And just to me, from what I expect in games nowadays, and what I expect from Witcher 3 being my favorite game, and what I expect from CD Projekt Red is, I just expected better from them. It was put out. First of all, they should have never put this game out on PS4 to Xbox One. They knew what they had. They tested it, and we'll kind of talk about the whole controversy right here. Just when you release it, and I don't know exactly how I feel about CD Projekt Red nowadays, but when you release a game and you only let reviewers on YouTube play the PC version, but you don't specify that, and then you let people go out and buy it on PS4 and Xbox One, and it's pretty much unplayable, a lot of gamers right off the bat, bam, right there, they're never getting a CD Projekt Red game ever again, probably.
Right.
Now, we kind of look at it differently. I will let people, I'm going to let CD Projekt Red get away with this one because I've not played the first 2 Witcher games. I have played the third one. It's my favorite video game ever, so I'm going to let them slip up on this one, but I'm not going to forget that you did lie about this. If you fuck up, and you admit your mistakes, that's different. Hey, you just didn't get it right. That's okay. You came out, you acknowledged it. People make mistakes. Let's move. Let's try to fix this. Let's move on. But you blatantly lied. You knew that there was issues with last gen. Because you tested it out on those systems. But no, you put out a game. You said, hey, review it only on PC. But don't say that. Don't say you only reviewed it on PC. And then, that's how you're going to try to market the game. And that's why it's still not on the PlayStation Store right now. I want to say, I bought it on Xbox, but I'm actually not sure if it's on the Xbox or not right now. I couldn't look that up because I already had it, but just overall,
it'll just show already installed,
the glitches,
already
the crashes. It did crash my Xbox a couple times, which obviously scared the shit out of me because I thought my Xbox was fucked up. But just all those issues and lying about it and everything, I'm probably going to give CD Projekt Red a pass. I don't think a lot of gamers are, and I think they are going to take a really big shot on this game.
So I will admit I was kind of lucky because I did experience bugs, but most of mine were just visual stuff, or maybe you kill an enemy and they just fall in a weird or pattern.
We talked about this. Our glitches that we experienced were actually very similar. Dude, we just looked at them 2 totally different ways.
And I think that's part of it too, is that I kind of brushed them off. I'm used to playing giant open world games, mostly from Bethesda. not to pick on them, but the Elder Scrolls games, the Fallout games have historically been a little buggy, just because they are such ambitious, huge games that I am probably more forgiving of things like that. But when it comes to shit like crashes, when it comes to your system literally locking up and you having to do a hard restart of your console, that's a problem. And the fact that these games were developed, they were supposed to release well before the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X came up. They were designed, or this game was designed for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it was, everything I've read is that they were unplayable. Almost unplayable on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I'm like, that was your target? and
Yeah,
you
exactly.
fucked up that badly. It's like, I get it. CD Projekt Red originated as a PC developer. Like, the original Witcher was a PC exclusive for the longest time. Like, I get that. But man, to not be able to scale your shit properly to the PlayStation 4 or Xbox
If you can't do that,
level.
don't release it on those systems.
Right. And I get it. You needed to, because you weren't optimized for Series X and you weren't optimized for PlayStation 5.
That's true.
B, not that many were sold. Like, this released in December. Didn't those new consoles also release in December? November, whatever it was. I mean, oh yeah, because all that Black Friday shit. Woo.
Yep. Yep, I remember all that.
Woo. So I look at this and I'm like, it's mind-boggling that their target had always been the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and they were broken. They were broken on those versions. Like I said, I did not have as bad a time, because we were playing on Series X, so we had better hardware.
Yeah.
I get that. We still had bugs. I'm a little more forgiving towards them just because I'm used to playing giant open world games with bugs. I mean, like I said, that's one of the hallmarks, good or bad, of Bethesda, is they are giant games, but they're usually a little rough around the edges when they drop. So I'm, you're absolutely right when you say the fact that all the review versions, all the review codes they sent out,
they
PC
lied and
only.
they knew they were lying.
Yep.
That's my issue with it.
Absolutely. And their stock dropped, was it like 10% or 9% or something when all this shit started coming out. So it does suck, because I think Cyberpunk 2077 is a very, very, very good game, all things considered. It is just, it needs polish. It needs more patches. It just, the story, the characters, the gameplay, like it's all there. It is all there. It just needs to be cleaned up.
And that's where my issue lies, is because I honestly, like you, I did enjoy the game very much. And I think it honestly could have been one of the best video games ever, but it's not. And it's not because of these reasons that we're talking about. Now, maybe they improve these things in the future, hopefully. I think it's a game kind of like GTA 5 where they can add a ton of content to the point where The Witcher 4 comes out, or like, that's way down the road and everything. But it's like, we talked about this game model where you just keep on adding content, and there's a place in us, probably more than one, but I know of one, in Cyberpunk 2077 where you're going down this road in the outskirts. It's like, you can't go any farther yet. Like, so that makes it sound like, hey, yeah, they're probably definitely going to have DLC, but even
absolutely.
they acknowledge that we're probably going to have DLC. So this is a game that you can add on. You can add these huge stories, like, these huge quests, whatever that we've seen. Like,
and we've seen CD Projekt Red do that before with shit like Blood and Wine. They added a whole new fucking continent to Witcher 3.
So, like, you see, I think with me, Cyberpunk 2077 is potential that was unrealized. Like, this could have been one of the best video games ever, hands down. You can add on, they can still add on content and make it better. So we'll see what the future holds in that aspect, but you got great potential right here, and just how you went about it was just not cool. It was not cool. Like, mistakes, fine. If things didn't work out, fine. Acknowledge them, fix them. But
they should have delayed it. They should have delayed it.
Yeah, they should. Well, it should never came out on the PS4. It should never came out on the Xbox One. Like you said, delay it even farther, fix it, because we're still here. We're shooting this podcast in what month is it? April. Like, at the end of April, and like the game's been out for 6 months. It's still not available on the PlayStation Store. Like I said, I bought it on Microsoft or Xbox. I'm not sure if it's actually available on Xbox right now. Like, it could just be shown because I bought it.
I think it is. I
I want to say I saw that it wasn't, but 6 months later, and like the PS5 is. I don't know exactly how the systems are selling, but I know the PS5 is selling very well, and your game is not even available on that system 5 months later. So just, I think that's how it's going to be remembered. Like,
which is unfortunate.
Like, this game has that potential to be one of the greatest games ever, but it's not going to be. And it's not going to be because of everything that happened around it. People have lost trust, maybe not with CD Projekt Red, but they have lost trust with this game. And I think that's going to carry forward. And like, we talk about the game being so ambitious. Like, I think the game is so big and there's so many things going on that I think there's just too much to fix. And you're just not going to get around. Not that you're going to fix everything, but you're just not going to get around to a lot of stuff. And I sadly think this game is going to progress like this into the future, where it's going to be there. The people that play are going to say, yeah, it was a very good game, but it was a 7. I think that's how we're going to think about this game.
And I'm so torn on this because I'm very much like, I think they will patch it up. I think they will get it. And as more people play it on the next gen consoles, again, I know everyone's situations are different. It's hard to get one still. I get that. But I'm hoping CD Projekt Red continues patching it up, continues putting out content for it. I will go back once they get it optimized and get the the 4K and everything else for the Series X. I plan on replaying it in an entirely different manner than I played the first time. But it is unfortunate. You're absolutely right. Its legacy, I think, is going to be the shit launch and the deception. And that sucks because CD Projekt Red had maybe one of the absolute best reputations in game developing coming into this. Like, Cyberpunk was one of the most anticipated titles of the last 2 or 3 years. It's been one of my most anticipated titles of my life. That's how much I loved Witcher 3. That I was looking for this game so much. And I still had a great experience with it. I still loved the game. The bones are there. The foundation is there for an absolutely amazing experience. But I completely understand if everyone loses trust in CD Projekt Red. I will go out there and buy the next CD Projekt Red game because Cyberpunk 2077.
But I'm going to be judging that one very hard.
Yeah. But Cyberpunk to me was still and is still an amazing game.
Yep,
yes,
agreed.
They fucked up the launch. There is no beating around that bush. They fucked up the launch. They're still trying to fix it. It's cost them a shit ton of money. Like I said, their share prices, like their stock dropped. Like, they are paying.
Good lesson for you all, right there.
Exactly. And plus, like you said, just the loss of trust from customers. Like I said, Cyberpunk
which is very important to gamers. Here's the thing. There's so many other options when it comes to games.
Oh, like, hell yeah, there are.
Like, if you go to McDonald's and you get a Big Mac that you don't like, you can't go anywhere else to get that Big Mac. Like, you can only get it at McDonald's. But when it comes to games, I don't know if that's a really good
it's
example.
ridiculous.
But like,
it's a fine example.
Like, every gamer has a backlog. If your game sucks, they'll just go to the next game.
Yep.
There's too many options, so you can really not fuck up like this. But I think I'm done with Cyberpunk. Red, you got anything else you want to say?
No, just at the end of the day, I think it's a great game that's unfortunately going to be remembered for its launch, and
Agreed.
I think it will be better down the line. I'm excited to see their DLC eventually. Yeah, but yeah.
For me, like I said, like, great game, had a lot of fun playing it, but a 7 because of all
legacy.
The other
unfortunately,
issues.
its legacy is that launch. Unfortunately, so that's it. That's my last thought.
So next episode, I kind of thought you were going to roll to the wrap up right there, but anyways, next episode, we're just going to talk about the gaming industry. We actually did not have to prepare for Cyberpunk that much because there's too damn much in the game to prepare for.
Plus, we just played it 2 months ago.
Yeah, we just played it recently too. So, but next episode, we will talk the gaming industry as a whole. But anyways, the wrap up, all these links will be in the description. You can support us on Patreon or PayPal. And if you can't support us financially, please leave a review or a rating. It helps out with our rankings when people search for like video games or stuff like that. And then also check out our website, tgpcgaming.com. We have a lot of video game merchandise there, and that is an affiliate shop, so we may earn a commission on purchases through our links. Red, you want to tell them about some of the other stuff we got going on?
We're on YouTube. Of course, we're at Two Guys Playing Zelda and TGPZ Gaming. Go check them both out. Discord. Absolutely love Discord. We have great discussion on Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, computer gaming, alcohol, TV shows, movies, sports, general nerd culture. Definitely check out our Discord server. It's a great place to connect with other fans. And then on social media, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram. We're at Busted Buttons PC. Thank you for joining us. Like you said, next episode, we're talking gaming industry in general.
Had a lot of fun this episode, man. Even though we have certain opinions, it was fun talking Cyberpunk.
It absolutely was. Cyberpunk, like I said, we have strong feelings about it, and I hope that came through in this podcast. But we will catch you guys on the next episode.